we have with a lot of these people, when you put your ideology before human life, you have no relationship to God. You understand what I'm saying? You have no relationship to God. There's nothing in my teachings that says that I have to not call you my brother, or that I should feel personally offended. If your religion teaches you that, then you're dealing with something that's more than a religion. And I don't mean that in a positive light. You're dealing with something that is a psychological device that makes you a weapon on behalf of the arbiter of that truth. That is a very dangerous precedent to set. That's why I basically, my heart goes out to religious fundamentalists of any religion, whether you be Hebrew, whether you be Islamic, whether you be Christian. And the reason I say that is because the fundamentalism in your religion puts you at odds with the rest of humanity. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because if the rest of the humanity makes a collective decision to think with their brains and to let the facts and the evidence have the last words, the religious people are going to become a minority on the planet. You understand what I'm saying? And when you become a minority on the planet, then you're going to have to be even more defensive, even more violent.
Do you want to go into it right now? Just a little sample of where Islam come from?
Oh.
Or you want to reserve that? You want to hold that in?
Oh.
You want to save some of that probably for next part 2 or something? Because we go on that one.
But I'm going to tell you this. The person who, there's a gentleman, I'm not going to name his name.
Islam was man-made.
Let me just say this. Let me say this. There's a gentleman who wrote a book telling the truth about where Islam came from. I'm not going to name his name. There might be some people out there who know him. Mm-hmm. When he decided to talk about it, they had to put him behind a curtain so he wouldn't show his face.
Damn.
Now that's sad. When you belong to a religion that makes people fear you so much that they can't even share with you a truth that they dedicated their lives to uncovering.
But listen,
because you know why? Because the person who holds onto the religious ideology does not put truth first. They put their religion first. So therefore their religion does not have to be truthful.
Right, but listen, when you say you don't want to say his name,
yeah.
How can the people look him up and get that information?
Well, the reason I don't want to say his name,
they want to look him up and get that information.
The reason I don't want to say his name yet, because they're gonna find out his name at the debate. The reason I don't want to say his name is because
I got you want to say that.
Yeah. You know, I mean, and not only that, me just saying what I said about the guy hiding behind the veil. There's certain people out there who are already gonna know who I'm speaking about. If they study this subject matter like I do, they already know who I'm speaking about. You know, and I think it's really unfortunate that man should be able to go to Mecca and sit in front of the Kaaba and talk to Muslims and say, look, and as a matter of fact, I really have a respect for this one Muslim scholar, and I can't remember his name, but he's in Europe. And he said something I never thought I would hear a Muslim say. He said, we should not make people afraid or fearful to engage us with debate about any facts or evidence they come across that refutes or challenges our worldview. We should invite that kind of debate, because it will either make us stronger in what it is that we have to prove. It'll give us a platform to share our views about our correctness with the world. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, it's a win-win situation. When you have people who want to hurt you and harm you because you call their ideology into question, they represent a very dangerous segment of humanity, because they're about thought control. They're not about truth. They're not about facts. They're not about evidence. They're not about, to me, and if you believe God is truth, no matter what name you call him or her, if you believe God is truth above all else, how dare you make someone be in fear of telling the truth, whether you agree with that truth or not, whether you find that truth insulting or not? How dare you associate yourself with God? You have no right. You abdicated the right to do that. Me, I look forward to the day that someone like myself, or someone like the author I named, could sit in a room full of Muslims, Christians, and Hebrews and have a dialogue and say, well, look, this is why I agree with you, because this evidence says this. And then they can confront that evidence and says, well, you know what, maybe you're interpreting that evidence in a way that says that, but we interpret it this way. At least at that point, I can say, well, you know what, I have to respect the fact that you choose to interpret that evidence that way, even though I disagree with it. That's where respect comes in. Because you had a meeting of the minds. There was no fear. Nobody was trying to instill fear in someone. Nobody was saying, you know, if you keep talking. I heard I heard a Muslim brother call into a talk show. These two Christian brothers talking about Islam, and they were breaking down the Quran. And all of the Muslims called in and said, you're going to start a World War III because you're inciting us to violence. You have to take responsibility, number one, for your own emotions and for your own willingness to perpetrate violence on other people. You can't blame that on someone. Nobody can make you violent. Somebody makes you violent if they come to rape your woman, your children, take your resources, invade your land. Honestly, I'm going to tell you something. And I could probably get in trouble for saying this, I have no qualms against Muslims who feel that they have every right to protect their land. Why? Because as an American, I know, and not that I actually call myself an American, right, but you know what I mean. As someone born and raised in America, even though I may not be the most patriotic person in the world, if we were invaded by another country who sought to impose their will over us, I would lock arms with any and every American seeking to keep that from happening. Be they Italian, be they African, be they Irish, I don't care, be they Arabic or Arab. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Even if they were Muslim, okay, it wouldn't matter. Because at the end of the day, we all want to be here in a place where we can share our views. You understand what I'm saying? Who wants to go back to the so-called dark? If you say I'm going to kill this person because this person said Allah doesn't exist, or Allah is false, or Islam is false, and therefore I have to kill you, or I have to hurt you, I have to harm you.
So let me ask you.
You have no relationship to God.
Where do Islam come from?
You just want to push. I can tell you where it doesn't come from.
Where at?
Africa.
Wow.
It doesn't come from Africa.
And that right there busts up the claim of Dr. Ali.
Wesley Muhammad. I know.
Muhammad all the way.
It doesn't come from Africa.
Wow.
Okay? He's going to show you little bits and pieces of things that can be found from Arab culture that are in Islam. And therefore try to extrapolate from that Islam comes from Africa. That's false. Mm-hmm. I'm not that stupid. I'm not that person.
Right.
You understand? You can do that to somebody who needs to believe that.
Did you see the debate with Dr. Wesley and Natural Tahuti?
I don't think I did.
Oh, you got to go online.
I have to go online and see that.
And the topic is...
Oh, wait a minute. From what I understand, I think Natural Tahuti didn't perform too well. And that was the general outcome of it.
Right.
Somewhat similar with and I'll say it, I'm not ashamed to talk about it, because I love him dearly. Somewhat similar to what occurred with Dr. Ray Hagan and Wesley. Yeah, there seems to be this pattern of a hesitation or an anxiousness to debate Islamic scholars, and I'm going to tell you why. The number one reason is the very first thing I just finished talking about, and that's why I spoke about it at length. It's fear.
Right.
It's fear of reprisal because of religious fundamentalists. Nobody wants to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to be walking down the street and some religious nut looks at me and says, oh, that's the guy that's trying to shit on my religion.
Right.
And I mean, come on, dude. It's conversation. We got human brains. Allah gave us a brain so we could think. Jesus gave us a brain so we could think. Atum, whatever you want to call him. I don't care whatever you want to call him. Give us a brain so we could think. If that part is not in your book, throw it away. Because whoever gave it to you to control your thinking. And your thinking and your breathing are the two greatest gifts you were given. You don't abdicate that for nobody. Because then you're not free. You're living in modern times still enslaved. Because somebody told you to think this. And then they gave you poor platforms of proof and evidence, pseudo evidence, that you ran with. And now that somebody had the real evidence to say, look, here's why you're wrong. Don't argue with me. Okay? I didn't create the evidence. All I'm doing is introducing you to it. That's it. I'll let you make up your own mind. See, that's the difference between myself and a religious fundamentalist. When Bashir goes in there, his job is going to be to convince the people of what he is going to expound upon concerning the Quran and Islam. Okay? My job is not to convince the people of anything. My job is to introduce them to the evidence and allow the evidence, or allow them to convince themselves. That's true freedom. When you're given the opportunity and the luxury of convincing yourself, then you can say, I'm free, I made an informed choice based on the evidence that was presented to me. If that wasn't your protocol and you were just born into a religion, You don't know the first thing about being free.
This is going to be powerful because you are on the undercard. You and Brother Bashir going in.
Oh, the other thing.
Hold up. To open up for Brother Polite and the
IPK.
And the ISUPK Hebrew Israelites.
Right.
Before that, it's going to be you and Brother Bashir.
Can I do both? Can Polite take a break?
Oh man, that will be powerful.
Let Polite take a break. Let Polite sit this one out. I'll do both of them. I'll do first. I'll deal with Bashir and then I'll deal with the Hebrew Israelites.
Oh man, that'll be powerful right there.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's my brother. I love that brother.
Right.
You know.
And we ain't saying we don't love you.
And IPUK, that's my brother, and Bashir is my brother. There's no question about it. If Bashir called me up and said, "Yo, I got some kind of beef and I'm by myself," I'm like, well, what I'm gonna do? I can't say no. That's my brother. He's calling me for help. I gotta go. Right. That's what we gotta see and understand. There's no book that anybody gives us that should keep us from coming to each other's aid. No book. I don't care if you're a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. I don't care if you're a Hebrew Israelite. I know if I see a black Hebrew Israelite getting beat down by a group of people who are not from amongst our own, oh, that's not happening. That's not going to happen. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to assist my brother, vehemently so, because it's only right. You know what I mean? And don't be surprised if people who are not black might come over and help him out. Right. Because there are some people who are really just concerned with right and wrong. You understand what I'm saying? Right. There's some people who are really just concerned with right and wrong. I'm gonna leave you with this one last thing because I know you might want to go to something else, but a lot of people are under the impression that when we talk about Arabs making war on Africa, they like to tell you that that was a race thing, and that because it was the later Turkish and Persian or Iranian Arabs who actually perpetrated that once they hijacked Islam, right? They want you to think, okay, black Arabs good, white Arabs bad, right? But what you have to understand is that a lot of those wars that took place, a lot of them were not racial wars. So don't think that just because Arabs made war on African culture and African religion that automatically meant that it had to be the white Arabs who took over after the Abbasids or during the Abbasids, okay? A lot of these wars were religious wars. You understand? A lot of them were religious wars. So the mere fact that Arabia was black is no proof or fact of the matter that black Muslims did not wage religious war on indigenous Africans.
Let me interject right quick.
There's a book that Dr. John Henry Clark wrote the foreword to, and it's called The Arab Invasion of Egypt. From the Roman era to I forget to what period, but the very first line in the book on page 1. Now this is not my words. I'm just referencing a scholar. It's written by Alfred E. Butler, by the way. It's written by Alfred E. Butler. I think it was published in 1902, and Dr. John Henry Clark wrote the foreword for its republication. And on the very first page, it says, Islam entered Africa through Egypt. When a particular Islamic army came in to take away control from Byzantine rule in Africa, in Egypt, in North Africa. They came in as a military. Okay, Alexander came in with a military. He didn't come in committing war on Egyptians. He came in to get the Persians off the Egyptians' back. But what did they do when they stayed? What did the Greeks do when they stayed in Egypt? They didn't come in fighting and beating up the Egyptians. They didn't come in with violence toward the Egyptians. But look what they did when they stayed. They created the Ptolemaic Empire, or the Ptolemaic dynasties, right? In which black people in Africa for the second time experienced, or maybe the third time, experienced Jim Crow law. Because they experienced Jim Crow law under the group that we now designate as the Hyksos in the second intermediate period. African people experienced Jim Crow law on their land under the Assyrians, when the Assyrians came in. And African people experienced Jim Crow law on their own land under the Persians, if such an invasion ever took place, because one of my scholars who I subscribe to, which is the work of Walter Williams, he posits that no such thing as Persians ever existed. I can't co-sign that, only because I haven't seen the documentation that would ameliorate or that would alleviate me of that worldview.